drones are like the Pied Piper technology with kids. And so that we've been able to leverage that interest in drones to introduce kids to the world of technology and a passion for technology literacy that really puts them on the right path forward for having the skills needed for the jobs of tomorrow.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 271. Are you looking for an easy way to ramp up your drone racing skills? Then you're going to like what today's guest has to say. Marque Kornblatt is the founder and CEO of the Aerial Sports League, a worldwide leader in drone sports, entertainment, and media. Since 2015, the Aerial Sports League has hosted over 1 million spectators at live events, has earned over 8.5 million video views, and over 50,000 social media followers. The league pioneered fun drone education and has taught thousands of new pilots to build and fly drones through events, meetups, and STEAM education programs. The Aerial Sports League is also the founder of the Museum of Future Sports, a STEAM education organization focusing on tech-enabled sports and equitable tech literacy for all kids. In addition to being the CEO of Aerial Sports League, Marque has created award-winning art and media for years, earning millions of social media followers and viewers. His kinetic art and short films have been exhibited at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, the San Jose Museum of Art, and the San Jose Tech Museum. He is often cited as a pioneering researcher in the field of telepresence robotics and has twice been a TEDx presenter. His latest innovation is a virtual summer drone racing boot camp for high school-age kids that can be experienced from the safety of home, hosted, coached, and taught by some of the biggest names in professional drone sports. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Marque talks about the Aerial Sports League, the virtual drone racing boot camp, and the future of drone sports and entertainment. But before we hear from Marque, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. So let's find out how the virtual drone racing bootcamp can elevate your drone racing skills with Marque Kornblatt of the Aerial Sports League. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Marque to introduce himself.
My name is Marque Kornblatt. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Aerial Sports League and Museum of Future Sports. And I've been in the drone sports industry since 2011 or 2012.
Marque, for those that may not be familiar with the Aerial Sports League, tell us about it, how it got started, and what it does.
Well, we actually launched around 2012 when we were a viral video series on YouTube called Game of Drones. And my partner Eli at the time and I, we were playing drone combat games with early commercial drones like the AR drone, which was really lightweight and kind of junk in terms of its physical build. And so we started trying to build an indestructible drone for aerial BattleBots type games. And the video series was popular, called Game of Drones. It actually turned into a successful Kickstarter, and we nearly went into full production around a full commercial ready-to-fly drone kit based on the success of that Kickstarter. But around the same time, our meetups and our get-togethers were really growing in popularity. We were hosting drone combat games at Maker Faire to thousands of spectators, and our monthly meetups had hundreds of people showing up. And as we were expanding that, and as drone racing started coming on board, we realized Game of Drones wasn't really serving the competitive nature of where things were headed. At the same time, HBO got wind of the name Game of Drones and the popularity of some of our viral videos, and they were none too happy about that. So they suggested to us in no uncertain terms that we reconsider using that name. The timing actually worked out fine, that we really wanted to find a more sporting brand, and the Aerial Sports League was launched around that time. And we became a drone sports organizer, event producer. We've done a ton of entertainment and education events. And out of the growth of the education side of it, again, about 2 years ago or so, and also the desire to kind of play with bigger technologies and broader technologies than just drones. At that point, the Aerial Sports League, or ASL, kind of spun off MOFS, or Museum of Future Sports, MOFS, which again is a larger umbrella for esports, robotic technology. Drones are still quite a big part of it. And it's got a kind of open door policy towards new technologies and new emerging competitions and games built around technology-enabled formats. Like, I'm super excited that all these different human jetpack technologies have gotten over that hump that they seem to have for decades of too short of a flight time, to now being truly viable flying machines that, now that they're out there and they're repeatable and they're safe and they're, essentially commercially available, the next thing that's going to happen is people are going to want to race them. And, we don't want to stop that. We want to encourage that. So the Museum of Future Sports always has its kind of ear to the ground, so to speak, to kind of figure out where those next sports are going to emerge from.
Before we get into the main topic of the show, how has your company fared with the coronavirus?
I feel fortunate that we have a few activities that we can move forward on and develop during these crazy times. Most everything that we had been working on was put on hold or just stopped dead because of coronavirus. We had already started working on some educational programs for the summer and into the fall, but even those were uncertain, to say the least. And the one thing that did come out of this was an appreciation for how we can leverage the tools that we're already using in a distance learning program to really bring that drone racing experience to students and campers, even when they want to stay at home and keep that social isolation and safety in place.
How did the distance learning part of your service evolve?
Our organization over the last 2 or 3 years had really started to expand beyond what we would now call traditional drone racing, hardware drones racing through physical space. And we started expanding beyond that to include drone racing simulators. In particular, we were working with Velocidrone as part of our competition series. We started working with those virtual tools and found that to be really successful. Additionally, we started developing all kinds of different educational programs serving youth as well as adults, hobbyists, and students. And over the course of developing multiple one-off programs and unique programs, we started leveraging some of the online tools. And things like Zoom were already in place, and Discord was already in place, and Velocidrone. But the events of the most recent few months gave us an opportunity to put all those tools together in a way that, again, provides a cohesive experience for students remotely to get a vibrant drone training experience, both physically as well as in the virtual space. And those two elements together combine to create a really powerful learning experience.
Yeah, I want to hear more about that. First, tell us about the virtual drone boot camp.
The virtual drone camp is in many ways very similar to the physical camp. We use a lot of the same tools and drones and technologies, but we deliver it in a remote presentation package. And it really consists of several parts. One is working with Velocidrone. Every camper would have a Velocidrone license. And they also actually get a USB controller, the new Interlink DX from Spectrum, which is a plug-and-play simulator controller for drone racing. And it's extremely quality. The gimbals are like buttery smooth. It creates a drone racing experience in the sim that you could never get using a traditional game controller or the keyboard and mouse. And so that part of it, the simulator part of it, makes up about half of the experience. And it's really worth pointing out how powerful training in a simulator can be. There are numerous examples of pilots who played on a simulator, learned how to fly, got their skills, built up their skills, and then they would come to their first physical drone race, a multi-GP racer get-together. And in multiple cases, those pilots who had never really flown in a race before managed to get onto the podium, and attributed so much of that to the experience that they had in that virtual simulator. So we leverage the power of the sim and that tool quite a bit in that virtual camp program. But that's really only half of it. The other half of it is every camper receives an Emax Tiny Hawk 2 ready-to-fly kit. And that's an extremely high-quality, all-in-one kit that includes everything, including battery, charger, even some tools and replacement parts, the goggles, the controller, and of course, the Tiny Hawk 2 drone. What's great about that kit is it allows you to set it up in a very stabilized and calm mode where you can learn line of sight and you can learn some of the fundamentals of flight. And you can then switch it to acro mode. You can even go from 1S battery to 2S battery for when you're ready to move outside into a full, like freestyle, all out kind of flight. And this one drone really allows a beginning pilot to go from newbie with very little or no experience, taking them all the way through to being a really high quality pilot, because this drone and kit provides such an amazing flight experience. And so that kit and the software and the drone controller, those are together over $300 worth of retail hardware that we provide every camper with as part of this week-long camp session. It runs about 5 hours a day, about 2.5 hours in the morning, and then about 2.5 hours after lunch. It includes a lot of group time in Velocidrone, practicing as well as competing. But it also includes video chat time with the entire group of about 12 students and several instructors. During those video chat times, we have visiting guest professionals come in and do one-on-one coaching sessions or presentations with the class. And we're lining up some really incredible talent and personalities from the world of drones to come in and be guest lecturers, coaches, and in some cases, even the teachers of the program.
Have you done the drone camps previously?
No, this will actually be launching in parallel at the same time. We've partnered with Spire Institute in Geneva, Ohio. And Spire is a long-standing traditional sports elite training facility, 177 acres or more, including full indoor and outdoor facilities for everything from basketball, track and field, swimming and diving, and truly Olympic caliber facilities. And this summer, they wanted to start offering esports and drone sports camp. And so we've been helping them develop and launch these programs. And originally, it was just going to be in-person on campus camps. Those programs are still being offered as well. Nobody's really quite sure what's going to happen, but the campus is ready. They've prepared from top to bottom to be ready to have the appropriate safety and procedures in place for COVID. And there's already signups for some of the traditional camps around basketball and swimming. So we're hopeful that the on-campus camp will still find some signups. But we decided to offer the distance learning camp because the timing obviously seemed right. And we wanted to be able to reach out to those campers and students and young athletes who were still looking for that summer training experience, but were maybe not sure what was going to happen.
Did the idea for the virtual drone camp come about in response to the coronavirus? Or was it something that you intended to do all along?
The digital part, the virtual and online part, had already become part of who we are. 2 years ago, we actually expanded beyond the Aerial Sports League to launch the Museum of Future Sports. And that allowed us to encompass more than just drone racing. It now allowed us to incorporate esports and video games and virtual reality games, robot combat, and a whole host of other activities that are still emerging or have yet to even be invented. But we didn't want to only be doing drones. And so over the last few years, as we made that expansion, we started working with digital technologies, doing online components. Actually, in 2017, we hosted the California Drone Speed Challenge, which was a fairly large race out here in the state. And we had 8 teams of 3 or 4 pilots each from essentially international teams from all over the world come to California. But the way that they qualified was in an 8-week race series that was done entirely virtually in Velocidrone. And it was a team-based race, so we had to set up team relay infrastructure around the virtual racing as well as the physical racing. And what was interesting about that was, in some cases, some of the teammates who teamed up in Velocidrone and competed and found a spot in California had never raced or met in person before until they got to California for the physical race. And so their entire team experience prior to that was entirely virtual in Velocidrone. That was in 2018, I believe it was. But that really told us even back then that the virtual component to all of these future sports, drone racing and video gaming, was here to stay. And so we've been looking for interesting ways to take advantage of this rise in virtual connectivity.
The Museum of Future Sports, how does that fit into the equation?
We've really put a lot of our energy with Museum of Future Sports into these educational programs, and we've been working quite closely with Spire around their summer camp for esports and drone sports. We're working with them as well to develop a year-round academic high school program, and that's a little bit broader than drones and sports. It's more of a mechatronic engineering program, utilizing robotics and drones and other hands-on kind of fun technologies that are quite inspiring to give a little bit broader engineering foundation to the experience, allowing kids to go to Spire for an academic year or maybe even more than one academic year during the high school years and really get a leg up in terms of being ready for a career in robotics or technology. So we're working with them around that, as well as continuing to develop sports activities, cultural engagements. We're looking to start creating some online competitions around some of these virtual tools and games. You know, we really see future sports as a kind of way to embrace all these different activities as part of one larger community. The idea of drone racing and esports and robot combat as being these isolated communities that don't really overlap and exchange with each other. We don't really see it that way here in the Bay Area, where, you know, robot combat and robot entertainment and drone sports, all of these communities arose from the Bay Area out of the same basic neighborhoods and communities of people. And from our perspective, there's so much benefit to be gained from having these people overlap. The gamers play with the hardware, the drone flyers play with the sims. And so everything that we do is to kind of embrace this idea of embracing technology and technology literacy, especially if we can convey that passion to the next generation so that they're really prepared for the workforce of tomorrow, which I don't know that anyone really is ready for how radically different it's going to look from today's workforce.
How do you think it's going to look?
It seems almost inevitable that technology is going to find its way into every aspect of our lives in terms of work and non-work aspects as well. And a good analogy for that in terms of how robotics and AI and the automated systems are going to find their way into our lives is think about computers in general and where we were with computers, say, about 30 years ago or so, when the idea of a desktop computer was sort of unique. And, you know, early adopters had them, and certainly businesses had them. And occasionally you'd have creative companies have them, and then they became creative tools. And eventually they became tools for all sorts of things. And with social media and with embedded systems where computers are inside of everything now, the idea that a world without computers informing and infiltrating every aspect of our lives seems almost impossible to imagine. But that's only been a couple of generations of computers. And the speed at which we're adopting new technologies is escalating so quickly that if we thought the last 10 years of change seemed radical, the next 10 years are going to make the last 10 years seem quaint by comparison. And so every job, whether you're a long-range trucker, or you work in food service, or you work in communications or entertainment or education, technology and these sorts of automated systems and digital systems are going to start informing how we do all of that work. And the current generation of people in these industries are playing catch up to those technologies, but the next generation they'll have to come in with those understanding of those technologies native. And so that's where these STEM education and maker programs and mechatronic engineering programs really give students a leg up so that they're fluent and literate in these technologies and languages moving forward.
What ages are your programs directed?
The academic school year is designed for high school students, 9th through 12th. The summer program mimics that same age group, although especially with the online program, younger students can fit in and stand shoulder to shoulder with the older students just fine. So it's fundamentally for high school students, but there's always a few younger kids that find their way in as well.
How many kids do you hope to reach through the drone camp?
Well, we're going to keep the enrollment limited. We really keep both the in-person camp as well as the distance learning camp very personalized. There's a lot of one-on-one time. Even in distance learning, we use Zoom and video chat for one-on-one coaching time. And so with that, we keep the camp size down. We're running 4 sessions of each, the distance as well as the in-person camp, but each of those sessions will only have 12 students total. And so there's plenty of one-on-one time with the instructors and counselors, as well as lots of good group time with a group of kids through the whole week.
By the end of the camp, what will kids learn?
Well, this program is definitely a drone racing program or an FPV program. So the students will get a week of pretty intensive drone racing experience, which is inclusive of a lot of things, including the race and competition experience. They'll have a physical drone and one-on-one coaching with an experienced drone pilot as well. And so if you're a beginner and you've never flown before, but you want to do this, by the end of the week, you're going to be a confident drone pilot ready to take this drone kit out into the world and fly confidently, as well as be successful in the sim world and Velocidrone as well. If you're a young pilot who's already been flying and you're really hoping for more podium time at multi-GP or some of the other opportunities, this is an elite training opportunity where that one-on-one time with Zoe or Colby or whoever they're working with will really allow these pilots to get that inside kind of understanding and nuanced experience that will allow them to take their skills further and really give them an advantage over a student who is just out in the summer flying and practicing each day. The practicing within the environment of our system and our school with these coaches and these tools. I don't know of any other program or camp or opportunity like this that'll be providing, such a intimate and one-on-one experience.
And when is it scheduled?
There are 4 weeks scheduled. The first one is June 14th, and then the next week is June 21st. Then we're going to take a break through the beginning of July and pick it up again July 12th, and then the following week, July 19th. And each of those is Monday through Friday, 5 hours a day in the virtual camp. The in-person camp, obviously, there's a little more time spent on campus. Actually, there's a few things happening in the in-person camp that we can't replicate in the distance camp. First off is the amazing campus and facilities. This will be both a sleepover camp opportunity as well as a day camp for students or campers who might be in the area. But this facility with the swimming pools and the courts and the track and field and the hiking trails and just so much outdoor space for flying, that the campers are not only going to have that experience with the Tiny Hawk kit, but there's going to be a full 5-inch outdoor racing track with gates, like a typical multi-GP style experience. There'll be Fat Shark goggles and professional radios and drones. There'll be a drone combat arena there, a workshop area as well. So the in-person camp obviously offers a little more hands-on and direct experience with some of the other aspects of the world of drone sports.
Are you still accepting applications?
We still are. I'm not sure about that first week, but definitely beyond the first week, there's application slots available for sure.
You mentioned that the Aerial Sports League also organizes entertainment events. Tell us about that side of the business.
Most of the entertainment that we have done or we're planning on doing was in person. It was involving drones and live spectators often we would create drone events in a nightclub situation, or we would host sanctioned drone races, professional style drone races. We were very interested in always creating drone experiences that weren't just for pilots, but created an entertainment value as well. And so we've worked with a number of venues and nightclubs and different entertainment partners. So we do things in the entertainment space that would be hands-on entertainment, where you could get drone training at an event. You could fly drones in a cage and play games with them that we would host. Sometimes we would do drone competitions for spectators at a large event where we knew there'd be a large group of spectators. We would bring in the professional pilots and kind of put on a show that way. In the past, we've hosted a series with Comcast Xfinity as a partner here in California, producing the California Drone Speed Challenge, which in one year was a drag race format, and in another year was a team-based drone race format. But each year had large prize purses and quite a bit of excitement around them. NBC Sports covered it both years. And so we've been in a lot of ways, a drone entertainment company. We've really been committed to creating experiences that were fun, both for the competitors as well as for spectators.
And then, of course, the coronavirus hit. Can you walk us through the impact and how the company is responding?
Well, the types of activities or projects we were working on included like retail entertainment destinations. So we were talking with venues in Las Vegas. We were talking with shopping malls that had opportunities around vacant spaces. We were talking to developers on the East Coast who were looking to create destinations around entertainment and family food and museums and shopping. And really, to a large extent, all of those projects are in some way or another on hold. There's just too much uncertainty right now. The types of engagements that we often were involved with happen to fall into those categories around COVID that are as states and cities start to open up again, a lot of those activities still fell into that like category 4 or stage 4, which are the last ones to reopen, which are things like large sporting events and trade shows and conventions. And many of the places in which we found ourselves working are some of those that are the ones that people are most concerned about reopening. And so we had to not necessarily, put those on the shelf forever, but we had to kind of shift our gears a little bit and realize that that wasn't happening for a while. And luckily, we've been doing education. We've been working with online programming in different ways over the years. And like, in a way, everyone else, COVID forced us to accelerate that plan and put into place these tools and ideas and programs that we had been thinking about, but now we just needed to accelerate that development. And quite frankly, it hasn't been all that difficult because really a lot of the tools have been there for a while. It's just the incentive to use them hadn't really been there. Like, we knew workers could work from home for years, and large companies like HP had done it and then kind of pulled back on it and, it said, no, come back into work. We prefer you to be in the office or something like that. It might not have been HP, but I remember a few years ago, there was a company that kind of reversed their decision there. So we know that distance work has been a viable option for a long time, but only in the last 4 months or so has it been an absolute requirement for survival. And now that we're learning that so many of the jobs that we couldn't imagine can be done remotely work so efficiently that way, there's going to be very little incentive to go back to the overhead of an office, the expense and the liability, and the fact that a lot of people just don't want to be in public with other people for the time being. A lot of these companies like Twitter and some others have basically been making the switch to remote permanent. And we're just going to have to get ready for kind of like a new balance. Even when things return to normal, there's going to be a new balance.
Do you think it will make the company stronger over the long run?
I do. We're learning so many valuable lessons here, not just about our business, but just about kind of, again, the larger changes that are happening in general. Across the board, reevaluating our values. We're seeing a major shift in the way people think about higher education and the necessity of it in every case, which, I'm not going to say that it's not required across the board, but increasingly we're finding lots of, really great career paths that don't truly require the debt and everything that goes along with higher education. And coronavirus is making people really look at that idea really much more closely. And so how that's going to play out over the next, 2, 3, 5 years, what that's going to do to higher education. Movie theaters are another one that just don't seem like they're going to come back. There's only a handful of chains to begin with. And so one or two of those chains fold, and movie theaters as we know them are essentially done. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying it seems like not an unreasonable course of action based on what's been going on.
When do you see the live entertainment events coming back?
Hopefully in the latter half of 2020 and into 2021, we'll be able to, proudly replant that flag in the ground and start doing some of these events again. And hopefully we'll have some announcements around that soon. But for now, we're focusing on the education and in particular around some of these distance learning and virtual events.
When you look back over the last 9 years in drone sports and entertainment, what stands out in your mind?
Well, there's been so many amazing moments and amazing things that have happened. I think the most amazing thing is seeing the timing of the tools and the technologies and the interest in drones all coming together in this perfect storm that allowed regular folks to be not just pilots, but to actually go further and actually become creators of the drone world and the drone industry. And what I mean by that is, outside of drone sports, most of the innovations come from one or two big companies, and they kind of come from the top down, like DJI in the world of cinema drones and work drones and things like that. But in the world of drone sports, it's really been the opposite. There's been a couple of large companies who have made major innovations and contributions for sure. But really the story is of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of small companies, guys working out of the garage, girls working in small teams, desktop fabrication, digital 3D printing and other digital tools, and making small incremental moves forward, changing seemingly overnight what the world of drone sports looks like. We were hardware innovators in the very early stages of that around our drone combat hardware, our indestructible large format drones for kind of these engineering weaponized system type games. But very quickly, when racing came on board, everywhere you turned, there were thousands of different new drone frames and new drone shapes and formats, motors and other electronics and camera technologies. And some of this was coming out of small companies in China. A lot of it was coming out of garages here in America and other places. And to me, I think that's been the most amazing thing, is just seeing how drone sports really kind of changed the language of innovation and put it in the hands of anybody who wants it. And that's been an amazing thing to witness, because truly, without exaggeration, every 4 or 6 months, the go-to standard of what people think of as this is the hot thing for racing, or this is where it's at right now, it absolutely gets rewritten every 4 to 6 months. And I've never seen anything move so quickly before. And every one of those innovations is valid. They're making things faster and better and easier to fly and more capable. And it's been remarkable to witness.
Mark, is there anything about the virtual drone camp that we missed?
Well, it's going to be pretty amazing between the caliber of the instructors, the amazing hardware that each student gets to keep, the daily intensive experience of training and coaching and competition. There's nothing like it. This isn't a typical STEM education camp with drones. There'll be some valuable STEM lessons learned, but really this is an elite training opportunity around drone sports. And we're really excited about being able to offer that up and working with Spire and their tremendous, tremendous facilities. And it's a one-of-a-kind opportunity.
What can you tell us about the staff that will manage the drone camp? Any special guests or people with some deep experience in drone racing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're still putting the final touches on who that staffing is, but pretty much everybody that we're talking to is literally a podium flyer in either multi-GP or Drone Champion League, DRL. I'm not sure if I can really say names just yet, but literally it's practically a who's who of drone racing royalty.
And for my final question, Mark, what message would you like to leave regarding the educational opportunities in the drone industry?
We've found that drones are like the Pied Piper technology with kids. And so that we've been able to leverage that interest in drones to introduce kids to the world of technology and a passion for technology literacy that really puts them on the right path forward for, having the skills needed for the jobs of tomorrow. We've seen other STEM education programs do the same thing, but we've never seen anything do it with the power of drones. And so we're super thrilled to be continuing to develop educational programs and opportunities that use drones as the foundation to really inspire kids to be looking forward into the future and leverage this passion for technology.
That's it for episode 271 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Marque Kornblatt and hearing about the Aerial Sports League and their virtual drone racing boot camp. I want to thank Marque for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about the boot camp, the Aerial Sports League, or want to connect with Marque, check out the website at aerialsports.tv. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.